From the shadows of gridiron glory, a new and far more sinister chapter has erupted in the saga of former NFL star Antonio Brown, one that now sees him labeled not as a sports icon, but as a fugitive. On June 13th, the Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office issued an active warrant for Brown's arrest on charges of attempted murder with a firearm, tied to a violent altercation that took place in May during a celebrity boxing event in South Florida. What was supposed to be a glitzy showcase of fame and athleticism spiraled into chaos, reportedly following a backstage dispute that escalated with gunfire. Authorities have confirmed Brown's involvement based on witness testimony and early surveillance leads, triggering widespread media shockwaves. For a man once celebrated for his unstoppable runs and highlight reel catches, this is a dramatic and deeply unsettling twist. Antonio Brown's post-NFL years have been anything but quiet, peppered with controversies, lawsuits, outbursts, and now, the most serious accusation of his life. Fans and critics alike are grappling with disbelief, some wondering whether this is the tragic culmination of unchecked behavior and unresolved trauma. The same man who once danced in end zones and dominated Super Bowl headlines is now being hunted by police, his legacy crumbling beneath the weight of criminal allegations and personal disintegration. The public response has been swift and polarized. While some offer prayers and hope for redemption, others see this as long overdue accountability for a man whose fame has too often shielded him from consequences. This isn't just a story of fame turned sour, it's a visceral reminder of how quickly the spotlight can turn into a searchlight, and how a hero's fall from grace can be more shocking than any touchdown ever scored. But behind the flashing sirens and headlines, a darker and more chaotic conflict unfolds. One that speaks not only to Antonio Brown's personal downfall, but to a pattern of unresolved aggression, erratic choices, and deep-rooted volatility that has haunted him for years. This latest allegation is not an isolated explosion, but part of a long fuse that has been burning since his NFL career began its tailspin. Insiders close to the investigation say that the shooting stemmed from a heated argument backstage between Brown and another participant, a verbal dispute that rapidly escalated to physical threats. According to early reports, Brown allegedly pulled out a firearm and discharged it during the confrontation, though it remains unclear whether anyone was injured. What's chilling is the context. This incident didn't erupt in a street corner or an after-hours club. It happened amid a supposedly organized celebrity event, with security, cameras, and a crowd of fans just yards away. Witnesses described a surreal scene of shouting, scrambling, and panic, as the illusion of glamour collapsed into a real-life threat. Investigators claim they've reviewed multiple video angles showing Brown storming off in anger before returning to confront the victim, moments before shots rang out. In response, authorities have been tight-lipped, offering no further detail beyond confirming the active warrant for his arrest. Yet those following Brown's descent say the signs were always there. Violent altercations, police run-ins, domestic abuse claims, and disturbing social media outbursts that pointed to a man unraveling publicly while many watched in silence or disbelief. His conflict isn't just legal, it's psychological, emotional, and deeply human. Many former teammates have spoken, anonymously or not, about Brown's unpredictable behavior behind the scenes. One source reportedly said, he went from being unstoppable on the field to completely untethered off it. Sports analysts and legal experts alike are warning that this case could be a defining legal battle not just for Brown, but for how society confronts celebrities with long-documented warning signs. The NFL, for its part, has issued no statement, though critics argue the league long failed to intervene meaningfully during Brown's spiraling behavior, choosing spectacle over support. What's most striking is the silence from Brown himself. Once hyper-present online, his social feeds have gone dark. No statements, no denials, only growing speculation. In a world where reputation is currency, Antonio Brown's balance appears bankrupt. This conflict isn't just about what happened in a Florida venue. It's about what's been building for years in the mind of a man once idolized, now isolated. Then came the breaking point, the moment everything unspooled into something irreversible. As law enforcement zeroed in on the case, a clearer picture emerged through leaked audio, private security footage, and testimony from shaken witnesses, all painting Antonio Brown not as a man caught in chaos, but as the epicenter of it. One eyewitness described Brown's behavior as possessed, recounting how he allegedly paced the venue, visibly agitated, moments before the confrontation escalated. In a chilling excerpt from the surveillance footage, now under review by prosecutors, Brown is seen engaging in a heated exchange before vanishing from the camera's view, only for the unmistakable sound of gunshots to follow seconds later. That footage, though not publicly released, has reportedly galvanized investigators to fast-track the case. According to legal insiders, authorities believe they have sufficient physical and testimonial evidence to issue a felony warrant, including ballistic traces and conflicting accounts from members of Brown's entourage. In an unexpected turn, one former friend of Brown has come forward anonymously, claiming that the ex-NFL star had been paranoid in the days leading up to the event, convinced someone was out to ruin him. That detail has fueled rampant speculation online, with fans and amateur sleuths debating whether Brown's mental health had deteriorated to the point of delusion. But beyond the theories lies a sobering truth. Brown's notoriety no longer comes from his game-winning plays, but from a string of legal crises that keep expanding like a storm with no eye. As the media frenzy intensified, police confirmed a multi-agency search operation in Miami-Dade and surrounding counties, issuing public alerts and urging any individuals with knowledge of his whereabouts to come forward. Meanwhile, the celebrity boxing community, previously proud to flaunt Brown's participation, has swiftly distanced itself, removing promotional materials and canceling future appearances. The climax of this saga is not a trial or arrest, at least not yet, but the eerie silence left in Brown's wake as he seemingly vanishes, not only from physical space, but from the narrative he once controlled. The man who once commanded stadiums filled with tens of thousands is now the subject of wanted posters and televised manhunts. For many watching, this is the final unraveling of a celebrity tale gone toxic, the kind of downfall so dramatic it feels almost scripted, except it's devastatingly real. Now, with authorities closing in, the final chapters of Antonio Brown's saga feel less like a redemption arc and more like a cautionary tale spinning toward collapse. As of this writing, Brown remains at large, his whereabouts unknown, and law enforcement agencies have urged the public not to approach him if spotted, labeling him potentially armed and dangerous. The urgency of the manhunt contrasts sharply with the silence from his camp. No legal team press releases, no statements from family or former teammates, no trace of the defiant social media savvy figure he once was. In this vacuum, speculation grows. Some believe he may attempt to flee the country, others suspect he's hiding in plain sight, shielded by enablers or old allies unwilling to believe how far he's fallen. What remains undeniable is the weight of his public implosion. His once immaculate athletic legacy, 7 Pro Bowls, multiple All-Pro titles, and a Super Bowl ring, now exists in the shadows of criminal charges and psychological unraveling. Analysts have begun comparing his trajectory to that of other fallen stars, drawing uncomfortable parallels between unchecked fame, institutional failure, and ignored warning signs. Mental health advocates argue that Brown's case underscores the league's historical neglect in supporting players' post-career transitions, while legal commentators predict that if captured and convicted, Brown could face decades behind bars. The entertainment and sports world watches on, some with sympathy, others with disdain, but most with a haunting awareness of how quickly brilliance can collapse under the weight of unresolved trauma and unaccountable power. In quieter corners of the internet, fans reminisce on Brown's golden years, rewatching his touchdowns with a mix of nostalgia and sorrow. "We didn't just lose a player," one fan tweeted. "We lost a human unraveling in slow motion, and we all watched." Whether Antonio Brown is arrested tomorrow or disappears from public view entirely, his story now serves as a chilling modern parable, a warning about what happens when fame inflates ego faster than accountability can deflate it. And in that reflection, perhaps the most sobering truth of all, the game ends, but the consequences play on. Still, the unraveling isn't just personal, it's institutional, cultural, and disturbingly cyclical. Brown's downfall is only the latest in a growing list of high-profile athletes whose unchecked fame and fortune created a reality where warning signs were excused, where red flags were viewed as entertainment, and where self-destruction was monetized. Sports media networks often profited from his volatility, replaying his rants, his sideline outbursts, and his controversial interviews, not as cries for help, but as viral content. Teammates and coaches, too, bear scrutiny, many of whom enabled his behavior in exchange for wins on the field. The NFL, eager to capitalize on Brown's skill, let him bounce from team to team despite misconduct allegations that would have benched a lesser player permanently. What message did that send? Not just to him, but to millions watching. That talent buys tolerance. That stardom shields you. That until someone is physically harmed, no line has been crossed. But now, it seems, the line is no longer theoretical. There may be a real victim. There may be a gun, fired in rage. There may be lifelong consequences. This is no longer about PR, reputation, or redemption arcs. This is about criminal accountability. Prosecutors are reportedly preparing formal charges beyond the initial warrant, and legal experts anticipate a high-profile trial should Brown be apprehended. It would be a media circus. A man who once graced the covers of Sports Illustrated and GQ, now reduced to grainy courtroom sketches and security footage. Meanwhile, the sports world wrestles with uncomfortable questions. How do we better protect athletes from themselves? Where is the line between personal responsibility and systemic failure? And what will it take for leagues, agents, and fans to truly prioritize humanity over performance? Antonio Brown's legacy, whatever remains of it, now lies in limbo, frozen between potential incarceration and a disappearing act. If he is found, the trial could become one of the most sensational sports-adjacent court cases in recent memory, dissected nightly on cable news and TikTok alike. If not, the mystery will only deepen, morphing into a cultural mythos, the superstar who vanished when justice came knocking. Either outcome is devastating in its own way, not just for Brown, but for the family he leaves behind, the teammates who once stood beside him, the young athletes who idolized him, and the fans who now struggle to reconcile the memory of a touchdown hero with the face of a wanted man. For those who once shouted his name in packed stadiums, there's only silence now. A silence filled with regret, with hindsight, with questions that may never be answered. And if his story teaches us anything, it's this. When the spotlight fades, what remains isn't just who you were, it's everything you failed to confront.